Hey guys, and welcome back to another video here on my channel and another episode of me and Gen Z. So I know these episodes used to be every single Monday, but I've been skipping a couple of Mondays here and there, and that's just because I don't want to get too repetitive with the topics that I discuss. So I'd rather skip a Monday until I can come up with something that I think is really important for us to discuss that I haven't actually discussed before. So that is why some Mondays I skip, because I really just want us to talk about the things that are really important without being too repetitive about it, okay? So before we get into today's video, which is a little different, but I feel like is still relatable to this, podcast, whatever you want to call it, remember, if you like the content that you see here, to give this video a big thumbs up and drop any comments below of topics you would like to discuss in the future. Also, if you do not want to miss out on all of the other content that I do on here, remember that you need to be subscribed and hit the notification bell so that you know when new videos goes up. So with all of that out of the way, let's get into today's video. Okay, so you've probably read the title and you're like, study tips. Not really what we come to expect here on Me and Gen Z. Well, yeah, true, but I also feel like it kind of relates, because one of the most anxiety-inducing experiences of being a teenager / young adult is tests and exams. And even if you are the most controlled person on the planet and you have so much emotional control, sometimes anxiety still gets to you before big tests and exams, and that is natural. But there are ways in which you can make sure that you limit the amount of anxiety and stress before an exam by being prepared. Now, I know some of the things I'm going to say today you may have heard before. The reason though is because they actually work, and until you start actually applying them in your routine, you won't know how well they work. So I feel like it's something that we hear all the time. You're like, whatever, these people. And then when you actually start doing them, you're like, whoa, okay, this makes a really big difference, and I feel a lot better and I feel a lot more prepared. And when you're more prepared, you actually feel less stressed and less anxious. There's always going to be that little bit of stress and anxiety that you're not going to be able to get rid of before a test or an exam. That's just natural, but you can be prepared and lessen the amount of stress and anxiety that you put yourself under. So I'm going to share some tips that I learned while I was at university. I learned these couple of years into uni. That is why the first year or two did not go so great. But once I started implementing these, everything changed. Really, my grades were better. I felt more prepared. And weirdly enough, I kind of had more free time. But we'll get to that in a second. Okay, so this can be applied to university as well as high school, because I feel like that is kind of the age range in which Gen Z kind of finds itself. Like high school up into university is kind of where we are. Some just entering the workforce, but let's get started. So the first thing, whether it is virtual with today's situation or in class, attending classes are important. Now, I know, especially in university with early classes, you do not want to go, you want to sleep in and just, watch series the whole day. I get it. Trust me, I understand. But class attendance is actually so important, because first of all, you learn a lot in the class just by listening to what the lecturer or professor is saying. Also, they may drop tiny hints in class about certain things that may be in the test or an exam. Sure, you can get a friend to take notes for you because I don't feel like attending class, but experiencing it for yourself, you and your friend may think about things differently, and that's why you need to be there in person. Obviously, if you're ill or you really can't make it, that's an exception. But if you can, going to class, whether in person or online, is really important. Then, while you're in class, you actually need to actively participate. Now, if you have social anxiety and you don't like to answer questions in class, once again, I get it. not someone who just answers questions spontaneously unless I am chosen by the professor. Otherwise, I am here taking my notes. That is what I want to talk about. Participation in class doesn't always mean that your hand is shot up every single time a question is asked. If that is you, amazing, okay, great. But taking notes while you're in class actually helps you remember things said in class a lot better, because you're listening, so you're using a lot of your senses. You're listening to what's being said, you're seeing what's being said because you're writing certain things down, and you're kind of feeling the motion of your hand writing it down. Just a little side note here, which will come in later as well. Studying your own handwriting will help you remember things a lot better than just reading typed words out of a textbook. I read that somewhere a while ago, and it's really, really true. But let's get back to taking notes. Taking notes in class, you don't have to make it look perfect. Some people do have that order and they can take notes in class and make it look good. But I feel like when people are speaking, you need to write down what's important immediately. So even if you write down this word, draw an arrow to this, as long as it makes sense for you, that is fine. If you're someone who can take notes in an orderly fashion, good for you. Once again, I'm not one of those people. I write down so, like, people can't understand my notes. I can understand them and they work for me. Okay, so that's the first thing. Class attendance and actually taking notes in class, it makes you just remember things a lot better. Also, the little hints that the professor or lecturer will drop in class about what may be in a test or an exam can actually just change how well you do, because then you know you need to focus on a certain thing. Then class attendance done. What happens after class? So I know some people, when it comes to uni especially, work like a part-time job when they are in uni. Some people are lucky enough not to, but some people do. And I get that can kind of mess with your time a bit. But that is where time management comes in. Once again, we'll discuss that a bit later. But I feel like when you are done with the class and you can, if it's possible, summarize the work that you did in class that very day, the more you will retain, because the longer you leave in between summarizing and the actual class, the less information you're going to retain. We actually did this when I was doing neurophysiology. It has been a while, so I don't know the exact stats, but I feel like after 24 hours you only retain 70% and it just goes down from there. So if possible, try to summarize the bit that you did in class the very same day that you did it. Keep your notes that you took next to you so that you know which parts are important. The reason I say summarize the work is, like I said earlier, studying your own handwriting is gonna help you remember things a lot better. Then bringing in color is a very good idea. Now, if you're someone who can draw pretty things or illustrations that help you, once again, great. Not one of those people myself, but there are other ways to incorporate color that actually help you. So some people like highlighters, where they highlight important words in a sentence, which is great. What I used to do is I used to write things in like a black or blue pen, and then the important words or important phrases that I needed to remember, I would write in a colored pen. I usually had about 7 or 8 different colored pens, and if it's like a paragraph that I summarized, I would change the color every single paragraph just to keep my brain awake, because it can get very tiring to keep my brain awake. And then if it's a different paragraph, it's different information, so you can kind of remember the colors, and that actually helps you retain later on. Because it actually did happen to me in an exam. When I got a question, I was like, wait a second, I remember summarizing this in pink, and then it kind of just came to me. So that can also help. Writing the sort of fillers in like a black or blue pen, and then the important words or phrases, highlighting them with a color or writing them in a color pen, definitely helps when it comes to summaries. It just helps you remember information better. Keeps your brain awake as well if you do different sections of the work in different colors. Not even just different chapters, because the chapter can be quite long. Different parts of that chapter in different colors, it just definitely helps, especially if you do it the same day as the class, okay? Then, usually classes run from Monday to Friday. If you are able to get that done every single day as classes go. I know there are other things that you have to do, projects that you might need to do, essays that you may need to write, or like I said, if you have a job, that may take a chunk of your time. But if you're able to get those summaries in within that week, you are free on the weekends. Maybe you can revise a little on the weekends, but then you have weekends basically free because you did all the work during the week. And that is where the next thing actually relates. When it comes to smaller tests, like some people do class tests, or just smaller little, we had the semester test and then we had the big exam, and we also had some class tests. That's just how our structure worked. Obviously different schools and universities work differently, but you usually have a couple of smaller tests that contribute a smaller amount to your grade than the bigger tests or the exams. Now you may think to yourself, okay, it's fine, I'll just study for the big exam, these class tests don't count that much, it doesn't matter. But let me tell you something, if you study for these smaller tests as if they're a big exam, so you make sure that you study for them, you make sure you know as much as you possibly can for these smaller tests, maybe the little bigger tests. When it comes to the exams, you will be less stressed than everyone else, because when it comes to the exams, you're basically just revising because you already studied everything at least once for the smaller tests. When it comes to the exam, you're basically just revising. And trust me, I started doing that, and the amount of stress I felt at the exams reduced so much. I can't remember, like since I started implementing this tactic into my university career, I barely felt any stress when it comes to the exams. Obviously, when you sit in the exam hall and they're handing out the papers, there's a little bit of underlying stress. But because I knew I was prepared, my stress levels reduced, and I was actually able to think a lot clearer. Now, student life, especially in university and also in high school, is not just as plain and simple as classes. You obviously have extracurricular activities, especially in high school with sports and all of these things. University, you may also be on a sports team, you may be in different clubs that take some of your time. So I know it's not as clean cut as just attending class and summarizing. I know there are extracurricular activities and you want to get some downtime just to give your head a rest. This is where prioritizing and time management comes in. Once again, none of the things that I'm saying is a particularly new idea, but I was the queen of procrastination for 2 years, and it almost ruined my university experience. I'm going to tell you, it almost ruined it. Procrastination is not a good idea. And also, when you are done with class, I know you're tired, you're like, I'm just going to rest, I'll do these summaries later. Trust me, if you do it same day, your future self will thank you. And that is a concept we need to start getting comfortable with, that if I do this now, me now is not gonna like doing this now. I'm not gonna enjoy doing this now. But future me is gonna thank me for this. And that is, yeah, they say live in the moment, agree, but there is also the balance. Like live in the moment, but make sure that you're prepared for the future so that future you will thank past you for actually doing the work. And then time management. You have 24 hours in the day. You need to sleep, you need to eat. And hygiene, basic hygiene. Those three things are things that you need to do, okay? Once you've taken out time for all three of those things, you need to start prioritizing what is most important to you. So hopefully you're answering your studies, which are going to be your top priority. Obviously, then your extracurricular activities, and obviously you need some social time, relaxing time. But it's about prioritizing these things and deciding which is most important after you've taken out time for sleeping, eating, and keeping up your hygiene. Then time management needs to come in, and you need to make sure that you know exactly where your time is going. I'm not saying schedule every single second of your day, because that is impossible, because sometimes things happen that are outside of your control and it messes up your schedule. But what a lot of people like to do is they call it block scheduling, where they take about like 3 hours and say, in these 3 hours, I'm gonna cook and eat and clean the kitchen and take a shower. and I need to finish that in about 3 hours. Then I'm going to put out 3 hours for this and 3 hours for that. They're like blocks. Scheduling where it's not every single second is a specific activity. It's just I have 3 hours to complete a couple of things. Now studying, you need to take breaks in between because otherwise you're going to fry your brain. So sometimes you're going to have to say, okay, I'm putting out half an hour to an hour for studying. In between my breaks, I'm going to do something like perhaps relax, spend some time with friends. But making sure that you stick to somewhat of a schedule is really important because time management is really important. And like I said, scheduling every single second of your day is not a possibility because things happen that you can't control. But having somewhat of a structure, somewhat of an idea where your time is going, especially in high school, university, where studying and things like that are really important, is really, really a good idea. It will stop you from procrastinating because you know, listen, if I get this done, I have time scheduled or I have time planned for socializing or going out with my friends or relaxing, because you know, okay, if I get this done, then I'm done, and then I have all that time to relax because I managed my time well enough to make sure I fit in time for me to just chill as well. And that is my final point, is time management and stopping yourself from procrastinating, because you now may appreciate laying on your bed and watching Netflix, but future you is not going to love you very much for that. So you need to think about that as well. Living in the moment and planning for the future, you need to keep that balance. And with that, you just need to make sure that you have the discipline to know when to do what. And that is my speech for today. So basically a rundown of the tips: class attendance and note taking, making sure that you summarize the day of, studying for smaller tests as well, because then you'll be more prepared for exams, and time management and limiting procrastination. Very important things. If you apply these tips to your life, I promise you it will make a big difference. And like I always say, this is not new concepts. These are not things that I just got out of nowhere and I'm a genius. These are things that people have been saying for years. But the reason is why I'm saying this again is because a lot of us don't do it. It took me 2 years to realize that I need to start doing something. And as soon as you do it, you see the difference. But it's just taking that step and actually starting to do it that is really important. And that's why I wanted to talk about this today, because we know these things. We know these things will help, but we don't do them because some reason maybe we're too lazy, which we're all guilty of being a little lazy sometimes. We procrastinate too much, and then in the end of the day we add to our already high levels of anxiety, we add to our already high levels of stress, and that is just not conducive to a very good balanced human experience, because you actually want to enjoy life every now and again, and these things will help you do that. So that is it from me for today. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys in the next one. Have a great day.